Hello everybody, this is Brian, and it's probably going to take a couple weeks for all the mods I use to be upgraded, so I wanted to get some kind of video out in the meantime, and I thought it might be interesting to do a bit of a tutorial on how to, or at least my plan on how to get this beta file into 1.0 and get it back the way it was. There's some information that I need to preserve, and there's some things that I cannot preserve at all. So what I want to preserve is the amount of science I have, where I am on this tech tree, which parts I have paid for within this tech tree, which contracts I have completed, maybe which ones are active, which ones are available. That would be nice. That's not too critical, but it would be nice. As far as Kerbals go, I'd like to preserve their experience here and which ones have been lost. And I would like to preserve, also back in here, I would like to preserve, this is probably the most important one right here, is which of these, there's a lot of these, I don't want to go, and I don't want to have a save game where all these are open again. So you see here's an awful lot in here to preserve. Okay, so how am I going to do this? The big problem here is that if I go and load this save game into 1.1, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so over in 1.0, if I just try to load my beta career here, it's going to find ships in orbit, out in deployment that do not have either mods installed or do not have parts installed. And there's no way I can control that because the mod developers have changed some things around for 1.0. So here we go. This is what we get. We get a vessel loading error. Vessel Kerbal Station was not loaded because there's the following parts missing. There's a whole list of parts. Hit OK. Vessel loading error. Mun base was not loaded. Material satellite, other satellites. So the two bases, the two things I really want to keep intact are not loaded. And that's the base and the Kerbal Station. Mun base and Kerbal Station. So clearly I can't just load this file up. So how am I going to get around this? Okay, back in the beta program, looking at my career. Well, basically how I'm going to get around this is this. I'm going to, in a nutshell, I'm going to move all Kerbals back to Kerbin so they are safe. Then I'm going to basically delete every craft out of this system just by going like this. Let's see, that's Kerbal Station 1 launcher. Here's a satellite. Terminate. Terminate. So that will kind of clean up my save file. When it's all over, I will only have Kerbals back on Kerbin. I will have my mission, my science set up the way it was, the parts I had bought, all that stuff set up the way it was, but I will have nothing in space. Okay, at this point I've taken my career, I've removed all the Kerbals back to the planet. I have removed everything out of the space. I moved the save game over to 1.0 and I'll load it up so you can see what this looks like now. Okay, here we are. You can see that the base looks about the same. All the buildings are upgraded the way they should. All my contracts are in place. I got a cut screen crash. I'm gonna have to reload. Okay, I've reloaded. Let's take a look at, let's see. Yeah, this is all looking pretty good. This is after I brought everybody home, of course. Okay, so here we are in the research center, and you can see that it pretty well preserved my tech tree here, and also the parts I had previously purchased, at least as far as the mods I have installed are concerned. So that was successful. Over in the science archives, looks like this is pretty much the way it was before as well. So I think that was a success. So I see that the MKS mod has already been updated. That's the one that has all of the modules I've got placed up in space. So I will go ahead and start building Kerbal Station and building the Mun mining base. And I will show you how that's done. But first, before we start launching craft, take note of the amount of funds. Because what's going to happen here, we start launching crafts and our funds are going to go down. We need to reimburse ourselves for that because remember, we're just replacing crafts that were in orbit in our previous game. Now, rebuilding this stuff does give me the opportunity to improve it a little bit, and I've gone ahead and done so. So, for instance, on this module right here, which is a curb attached destined for MUN, it has a different base. This base does not have landing legs attached to it. Instead, it has a great mount for wheels. And I'm going to use the Kerbal Foundries tracks mod. I think it's Kerbal Foundries mod, but it has a bunch of tracks in it. These seem to give much better performance in low gravity situations. They have a lot more traction. And then what I've done, since I'm going to hyperedit this into position, I've gone ahead and put an SAS unit on top of it, and yes, and the means to detach it from the craft. So let's say that I want to put this on MUN. Here's how this works. First of all, I don't want anybody in it. Go ahead and launch it. And because I had previously placed all this stuff up on MUN, I don't want to go through all the rocket launches again to get it up there. I've already done that, so this is just a quick and dirty way to get them up there. So what you do is you pull up Hyperedit. This is a mod I've installed. If you use this for anything but doing stuff like this, rebuilding a saved game or fixing a bug or something, then you are cheating, to be sure, and you will quickly be very bored of this game. So don't do it. So you hit Orbit Editor, and I'm going to send this into a 10,000 meter orbit around MUN. Currently editing active vessel. Good. Hit Apply. Now we are in orbit around MUN. Okay. Now I just need a good landing site. Now I already have placed a bunch of stuff up here because this is actually the save game after I've completed it, but I'm just showing you how this is done here, how I did it after the fact. So I want to land this in a daylight site somewhere. I'm going to move, let's see, mean anomaly. Yeah, move this around. So now it is in this part of the orbit. I'm going to pick a flat place to land. So I'm going to switch to the ship lander. And when it gets over what is probably a flat place, I'm going to tell it to set to current. Okay, set to current. Now it's going to basically teleport to that space, or that those coordinates 20 meters above the ground, and it will land it nice and gently. The only thing I have to do is get it so that it's pointed straight up. So let me just get it. Let's see if I got this right here. Okay, no, I want to pitch probably 0. Execute. Yes, there we go. So I can now take it out of map mode. Here we are. Click land. And it's just going to gently set it down for me. Okay, there we are. I can close this stuff up. Okay, we're kind of rolling downhill a little bit. This wasn't perfectly flat. Okay, I'm going to detach the SAS module. And now, it's kind of funny to wiggle this until it falls off. And there we go. It is now successfully deployed. If I wanted to land other modules right here, what I could do is I could say ship lander set to current, which is where this is, or where it was a second ago. Now, of course, I want to move this out of the way because it will literally drop it right on top. Then set the brakes, and now I can just keep this open, and any other thing I bring up here, I can just click, land here, or click landing, and it will drop it down right here. and then I can connect it up. So that's a quick way to do the base. Now for Kerbal Station, you can literally just set the entire station up like this, send it out to the launch pad. With enough of these clamps, this whole thing will hold itself together. And I just have to say orbit editor, select active vessel, do simple. This was in 118 kilometer orbit, so let's see, 118,000. This reference body Kerbal, apply. And there it is. Oh, look at that, right next to the Kerbal station I already put up here to correct the save game. Okay, now that MUN station and the Kerbal station have been launched, you can see that I've dropped about 100,000 or so in funds. I need to reimburse myself that money, so I'll show you how to do that next. Now, to edit your save file, what you need to do is you need to go into wherever you have Kerbal Space Program installed. For me, that's Steam, and I'm using Windows. Open up your saves. And before you do anything, you want to make a backup of your save game. Here's my save game. I've already made a backup right here. And then you need to go into your save game. Somewhere in here, you'll see a persistent file. You want to load this. Now, you don't want to load this. Generally speaking, you don't want to load any kind of computer code into something like Microsoft Word. High-end Word processing software will add a lot of line breaks and other stuff to the file, which will screw it up. So in here, this is an actual code editor. If you don't have one, you can usually find one of these free. If you don't have one, use something simple on your computer like Notepad on Windows and just make sure that you back it up beforehand just in case. So I'm going to search for the number of funds that I now have in my game after launching the station. And here we go, scenario funding, blah, blah, blah. And I need to just change this number to, I think it was 1404330, if I remember correctly. I will double check that. Save it, close, and then we will go back to Kerbal Space Program. All right, now back in the save game, you can see here that the funds are now back to where I just set it. By the way, you don't even need to quit Kerbal Space Program to make an edit like that. You just need to go all the way back to the title screen, and I probably wouldn't even have the save game, window selection or the window where you select the save game you're going to load. I probably wouldn't even have that open. Okay, now I'll go ahead and give you a quick tour of, this is now moving a little more out of tutorial mode and into reusable KSP for anybody who's been watching. To just give you a tour of what I have placed in orbit and what has changed. So first of all, Kerbal Station. Now before, Kerbal Station was kind of long. It was all went down one axis, and that created a couple of problems. There were two problems with the station that I wanted to fix. I'm going to move it over to the light side here. So one problem was that it was so long that when the camera was centered on the center of mass, it was very hard to select a part that was out on the end of the station. It was almost off the screen. So this design right here should help solve that. It's much more compact, as you can see. That accounts for the shape difference. Now, these MKS modules did change a little bit. What was the control module is now called the Pioneer module, and it basically functions like, it does a little bit of functionality of all of these modules. So this is like you can land one thing, get a station started, and start adding on to it with more efficient stuff. But it also acts like a science lab, so that's its main function here. Fuel storage and supply storage is now in instead of attaching rocket parts to this side. The other thing about the station I didn't like was that it just destroyed my frame rate. So with fewer parts, the frame rate hopefully will stay high. And I think the part count on this, well, it was about half. I've since, I've added a few things here that weren't on the station before, which might help bring it up, but pretty sure the part count is lower. Okay, let's go look at what's going on MUN. Okay, now on MUN, I had already scanned it with resource satellites, so I put those back into, just put those into orbit, let them scan so I can find a new place to put my MUN base. I have no control over where they're going to find resources. It's a whole different system. So, and because it did find tiny amounts near the poles, which is what I was doing before, but you know what, honestly, the polar base, I think I'd figured out what I was going to learn by doing that, number one, and number two, it was just terrible for the videos because it was always so dark. So I went ahead and relocated the base to where I found the highest amount of resources over here, which I think I have to activate the satellite to actually see that, but I'll just skip that part. The other thing I did was, instead of having one satellite with every scanner on it, I just did a satellite with one specific scanner, kind of like a constellation, and I'm going to create a launcher that actually is like a mothership that can go collect all these and move them all at once to a different body when it's time to go scan Minimus. Okay, let's go look at MUN base. Okay, so here's the new MUN base. You can see I'm using the new tracks on all of these, and because Kerbal attachment system isn't upgraded yet, I had to use the non-Kerbal attachment system of connecting these together with these long tubes, which was a little bit different. You expand it out. It's kind of like the grabbing docking node that you used to grab onto asteroids, and so you arm it, it extends out, and then you drive this into wherever you want it to connect to, and then you are docked. The other change is that this is now the drill unit. Get in here so we can see this. So drilling unit, I use 2 radial drills, which should give me a little better flow for about the same weight, or maybe even less. And then this is the fuel storage, and there's still the old converter on here. It's the same thing. And this is the supply storage. And then we've got our colony control center, which, like I said, now is more like a science lab than anything else. And then for the rover is pretty much the same, except I put these nice tracks on it. Slightly different lights. It's now a 3-seater, so I got a space room for a scientist in the back. And this thing is a lot of fun to drive around. Now there's a bug. Yeah, they haven't fixed this bug yet. You can't retract these solar panels yet. Or maybe they don't intend to, I'm not sure. I might have to change that in the future, because these will get blown off of here eventually. So that's it. Really what I'm waiting for is the Lackluster Labs mod to be fixed, or to be upgraded. The SpaceX mod to be upgraded for my SpaceX pods, and the KW rocketry mod will be a real big one. And perhaps if Lackluster doesn't upgrade, I could go with OPT, which hasn't been upgraded either, or potentially something else. I just don't really want to play with ships that look like garbage. I want to do it like I want to do it. So speaking of SpaceX, let's go take a look at the footage from when I landed the 2 crews, because when I brought them back out of space, because this was the first time I got to use these pods like they were supposed to be used for, and it was pretty cool. So here we go. Okay, so this is pod number 1. This is the pod that was docked up at the station. It's bringing back the station crew. And what's kind of special about these, was different than the last time I brought this pod back, was that it's got the engines in it this time, so I can do a full powered landing if I choose. We'll see how this goes. I have the parachutes on there too. Now, I know to do a powered landing, I do need to overshoot much more than I do with my 2.5 meter boosters. So with this one, I'm trying it just a little bit farther than I do with those boosters, and this one's I think it's gonna land short here. Something has been making very interesting noises in my Kerbal Space Program, and I have no idea what it is. Little beeps and boops and stuff. Alright. Oh, so today the SpaceX Dragon 2 flew for the first time in the launch abort test, which was very successful out of Cape Canaveral, and they streamed it live. You can go look at it. Okay, as expected, the solar panels attached to the side did not make it. This is with stock aerodynamics and stock re-entry heating and explosions. No more deadly re-entry, no more FAR. Alright, fire the engines up. Okay. Brought this to almost subsonic speeds here. Now I'm going to land in the hills, so I think I'm going to do, if I stand this up a little bit, slow down some more, I'm thrusting more, I'm flattening out its trajectory. Now I'm actually moving upwards, so I'm just going to propel this a little closer to the KSC. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Still need enough fuel to do the actual landing here, so I don't want to burn off too much. Here come the landing gear. I'm doing this entirely off the nav ball. I don't have my special windows anymore from MechJeb that show me exactly how much horizontal velocity I have. I have to recreate those. But this is looking pretty good. Got the retrograde marker right up towards the top there. It seems like these engines are kind of touchy. It's like, okay, here we're definitely falling, but if I increase this by 20%, then we're definitely, propelling this upwards at more than 1G, so it starts moving up again. So I'm trying to figure this out, and then, uh-oh, coming in a little too fast. Ooh! Okay, guess they survived that. That looked like a pretty hard hit to me. And now we're up on the landing gear. Okay, now here comes the second capsule. This capsule just has Jebediah and Bob. Oh, and I think I actually mixed in some of the station crew too with this. And they're bringing back all the science from Mun that they collected. So this one, that's why it's my second landing, to be honest. I really don't want to lose these guys and the science. So you can see I'm overshooting much more this time. I think that's the altitude I'll be at when I'm over the KSC, which should give me enough time to do my braking burn. Now, if you guessed that this was going to land long, you're probably right. We're not even seeing re-entry effects yet, and I'm over these mountains, right next to the KSC here. This is probably where I should have fired up the engines, but I did not. I waited. I was kind of hoping I could do a little bit of a boost back maneuver or maybe land on ground, but ran out of ran out of fuel, so we'll just splash this thing down with the chutes. I got to remind myself that this isn't too important of a flight because I'm just trying to get these guys home so I can get over to 1.0. So this is the very last scene you will see from KSP.90 here. And here we come in for a nice sedate landing, unlike the last time I landed one of these capsules in the water. And splash down, and it actually floated this time. Kind of low in the water though. Alright, so hopefully Lackluster Labs, B9, SpaceX, etc. will be updated soon. And thank you for watching. Hope you learned something. If you have any complicated saved games and you want to move them over, I hope I helped you out. And that's that. I'll see you in 1.0. This is Brian signing off. Oh, and I should mention they did bring back nearly 300 science and they gained some experience, which is why my 1.0 career is going to start off with more science than you last saw in the beta version. 407.8, just like you see here.